Okay, today is March 26th. It's Wednesday morning, and I'm going to document this federal civil rights case that I have. Now that everybody's paying attention, and I'll be posting this on Facebook and Google Plus, and I'll be sending a copy to the police department when I get time. Um, my name is Brandon Lee Houghton. I was born March 30th, 1972. I live in Eureka, California, and these are the civil rights violations and complaints that I have starting in 2005. I guess I'll start with 2004 when I was at Atascadero State Hospital. I witnessed a staff member there by the name of Toby Meager was assaulted by one of the staff members there. Everything went okay at Atascadero until I went to court and testified in 2005 for Toby Meager, me and four other inmates or patients from the Atascadero State Hospital. When at that point I was retaliated against by Atascadero State Hospital. In 2005, in October, I was released from Atascadero State Hospital back to the city of Eureka. At that time, I was told by a man that there was a vendetta that was against me, and I had no idea why or what was happening. But that was when it all started in 2005. 2006, I broke up with my ex-girlfriend Peggy Westbrook, and I'm not sure what Allison Pete, I think, was my landlady's name. And right about March of 2006, I heard them after I'd been released from Atascadero in 2006. I had heard them talking on the porch while they were smoking a cigarette, saying that they didn't think that I would last this long. And I was like, that didn't make any sense. I figured the relationship had to do something with the relationship, or me staying on the streets, being violent or catching a case. But at this time, I had no idea that there was a vendetta that they had against me. Then about 2 months later, in June of 2006, there was a man named Larson here from Eureka, California, who told me that there was actually a death, that they had actually planned to murder me. And I was living in Old Town at the time. I was at the mission because me and my girlfriend Peggy had broke up. So I started watching. About maybe like a month later, I met my wife, Christina Bush, who I'm with now, and we have two children. Okay, in 2007, we had a daughter, Desiree. I started going to the court proceedings, and Marilyn Miles was the preceding judge and presiding judge. And Marilyn Miles is not innocent, or her hands are not clean. These people have known that they've been trying to have me murdered in the streets for years. It's just that this is apparent because yesterday when they tried to say, well, um, you know, we were just going for the quick fix. I said, no, no, you weren't. You were taking away my children, violating my civil rights, and then putting these gang members, which I will explain later, after me to try to have me murdered. That way you wouldn't be exposed for violating my civil rights. But you already had the murder plot already in place. It was already a done deal because I had already talked to a few people. And at this time in 2006, when I was still on parole, I had my parole officer was Terry Ann Top, but I was also with the dual commitment since I've been released from Atascadero. And the guy kept asking me, he's like, aren't you a SVP, which is a sexually violent predator, since I had been released from Atascadero? And I was like, no. He says, oh, okay, well, let me change your file. I was like, okay, guys, please do. Right. So then in 2007, I went to, we had our daughter Desiree. I took my DNA result test here in Eureka. My daughter's DNA results were taken down in Ukiah or Willis at the child welfare. And then when I went to court, Marilyn Miles, instead of introducing my DNA evidence into court, into on the record, and upgrading me from alleged or presumed father to biological father, she terminated my parental rights. Right then, I knew I was a multimillionaire because that was, and then, well, and I'll just keep going forward. In 2008, the Health and Human Services Division, Civil Rights Division, called me and told me, they said, yeah, they're violating your civil rights and you have $1 million lawsuit. Just keep taking care of your children and your wife. You'll get your kids back. Let us take care of this. So at that point, Marilyn Miles was already knee deep involved. No matter what she says, it was no quick fix. It wasn't they were trying to do the best they could for my children. It was all about violating my civil rights. And then in 2009, well, the Health and Human Services Division called me. Then in 2009, I find out that it's true that these gang members are really trying to kill me over character assassination. They already stole my kids and violated my civil rights. They just didn't know that I knew about it, so I kept quiet about it. Then in 2009 or 2008, my wife intentionally caught a case. They told her, I said, we're gonna. Well, I didn't. I'll just go straight with the story because this is what happened. My wife catches a case. She's stealing mail in our neighborhood and she goes to jail. Right, that was in 2008. That was in September of 2008. So then, while that's happening, in 2010, I'm going to, 2009 and 2010, I went to AOD and the Lee Brown program, and I kept, all the people were violating my civil rights, but I didn't know why. Then in 2010, I had a man from Homeland Security jump my back fence, and he was like, "I have to see you," and I'm like, "Why?" He says, "Because where you're going to AOD inside the Sempervirens is where the coroner's office is. They got the crematorium oven in there, and we got to make sure that they're not going to dispose of you before we get a chance to finish." I said, "Wow, I'm going to court right next door to where the crematorium is." The county coroner is involved in this because they're trying to dispose of my body. If somebody could murder me, they could stick me in the crematorium oven and dispose of my body. Nobody would ever know. So then I knew to stay within the federal zone here in Eureka, California. There's 250,000 cameras between, well, because the federal courthouse is here on 2nd and 4th and 5th Street. So I stayed all the way in the federal zone here. Then I started seeing that they were dead serious about trying to murder me. Then in 2011, and then also I had a San Francisco police officer, retired San Francisco police officer, show up and tell me why. All of a sudden I found out why. He said, "This is all over a vendetta. They're violating your civil rights. They're trying to kill you, so be careful. Pay attention to what's going on. They don't want you to expose it. They already stole your kids. I already know you got a civil rights lawsuit. Marilyn Miles and the rest of these idiots, the child welfare, they know you have a civil rights lawsuit. They're already going to try to murder you. Pay attention. You stay in this federal zone. You'll be all right." So, and then in 2011, my wife gets released from the Porterville Developmental Center after 2.5 years for an incompetent to stand trial. Right. Well, she tells me during an argument that we had that whoever was involved is telling her that I would have been murdered by the time she got out and that she would already have our children. So I'm like, wow. So the reason why my wife, somebody coerced my wife to catch a case in 2008 so that they could murder me between 2008 and whenever, and then she would get the kids when she got out. That let me know for sure that it was way bigger than what I thought and way bigger than what I knew. And that she would get our children back. So that's, and then in 2012, the same people are after me. And then in 2012, finally, my wife tells me the reason that these gang members are trying to kill me is because of a story my mom told them of a babysitting incident from 1988. And where some girl I was babysitting, well, one of the children I was babysitting out at like 5, her underwear were on the back of the couch. And my wife told me about that, right? Well, when I called my mother and confronted her, I said, "Mom, these people are trying to kill me over a story you told them from a babysitting incident down in Santa Rosa in 1988. My mom says, "Who are you going to believe, me or your drug addict whore wife?" I said, "Mom, there's no way that my wife, who wasn't even barely alive at the time, could know this story. That had to come from you because all the other kids were too small. And why would somebody be using that story to try to murder me in 2011? It doesn't make any sense. Come on, Mom. You are just as guilty as the rest of these people." Anyway, my mom, she denied it completely. And so then in 2013, there were multiple attempts in my life, but I already know where to stay because I'm within the federal zone here in Eureka, California. And then and then I had a guy show up last August, and he told me, he says, "Well, these people are trying to have your kids molested. We won't let them." And by that time, it had already happened. My mother-in-law, Ruby, had already told me that the kids had already got molested, at least the two daughters. My wife's older daughter, Tammy Marie Miller, and my daughter, Desiree Houghton, had already been molested by that time. So it didn't matter at that point. Now it's just about going through and making sure that the people responsible get punished. Marilyn Miles is just as knee-deep, just like the rest of them. They weren't trying to get a quick fix. There was no such thing as, "Oh, we're just going to stick his daughter here and it's going to be a done deal." This was a conspiracy that was carried out. The only thing that didn't happen, because I was just walking down the street about 6 months ago, and these two girls are walking by the federal courthouse, and they're like, "Well, these gang members told us they'd have him murdered by now." And I said, "Well, you shouldn't hire people to kill people that they don't know in the first place. But you sure the hell shouldn't be violating my civil rights in the meantime and letting me collect a bunch of evidence, because that's what I've been doing." And then in 2014, here it is. Now I'm finally, exposing, and they're trying to rush in to cover it up, but it doesn't matter. It's already a done deal. I've already got my protection. I've already got my civil rights complaints all together. I've dotted every I, I've crossed every T, and I put the period at the end of every sentence. And like the feds told me back in the day, you're already a multimillionaire. Just kick back, keep alive, and you'll get your money and your kids back. And that concludes my report. Thank you very much. God bless you guys, and have a good day. All right, bye.